In at number 10, we have the Carno. And the reason why I would say this is a dangerous creature is it is one of the faster carnivores about on the island. And I know there are some other creatures which you may think, like the Thyla, but I'm not putting the Thyla on this list as they aren't as common around the map. But, you know, if you really do think Thylas are the most dangerous thing in the world, I don't know why, I've never really had a struggle with Thylas. Then just pretend I'm talking about Thylas and not Carnos here. But with the Carno, they deal the bleed damage, again like the Thyla, so maybe I'll feel obliged to put the Thyla in this spot as well, because the Thyla isn't on the list. Yeah, Thyla and Carno in at number 10, because they deal the bleed ability, they're pretty mobile, and especially with the Carno, they do spawn like absolutely everywhere. And they are pretty easy to trap on normal Arc and ASA. Obviously, they're a little bit harder because of the Dino AI, so they avoid traps now, which is a new and innovative feature. And actually, when I tamed a Carno on ASA, it was a lot more of a pain to get it in. And with RGs as well, they're a lot more of a pain. Like, just so much more of a pain because they don't want to go in the trap. It makes sense. To be honest, a creature wouldn't really do that in real life, but you can still get them in if you just keep going around in circles. Eventually, it will happen. You kind of just need to get round quick enough that it doesn't have time to think through it. But yeah, Carno and Styler in at number 10. In at number 9, we have the UT. But why would I put the UT in at this spot? Well, the main reason for it is that roaring ability really is lethal if you end up in the wrong place at the wrong time and it roars, and you really can end up in a huge predicament with this thing. And they deal quite a hefty amount of damage as well. Like, I know a lot of people don't really think of the UT for dealing loads of damage, as you don't really use it for that, you use it for its roars. It deals a very hefty amount of damage, and it has some pretty fast mobility as well. If you ever try to tame a UT, which is probably most of us to be honest, you'll know how fast these things are, but for people who haven't, the UTs are pretty fast, and you should definitely be careful of these creatures around, as you really do not want to get into a fight with a UT, unless obviously you're very well prepared. Then I think you'll be fine, but you know, still, UT definitely a dangerous creature, and that's why I put it in at the number 9 spot. Next up, we've got the Rex, and this is just one of those creatures where you kind of have to put it on the list. Although they are quite slow creatures and kind of easy to avoid, the Rex stand kill can still be a big challenge for many Arc players out there, as you struggle to get away from it sometimes, especially in ASA. Now you can't level up movement speed unless you obviously enable the setting. It's kind of like flyer speed leveling, like Wildcard removed it, but they never really got rid of it because you could always enable that setting single player. But still, it is now harder to run away from Rexes than it ever has been before, although they are so much easier to tame because of those Rex babies. Honestly, that is an absolute hack for taming Rexes on ASA. Definitely advise it if you've never done that already, and obviously you have ASA, as I know a lot of my viewers don't actually have ASA at the moment because it's too darn expensive, and it's also quite a pain to run, although most of my viewers do seem to be console ones, and me being a PC player, I'm upgrading my computer actually to play this game even better. But I've had on consoles that actually runs pretty well. But to talk about the Rex, you can say it's a dangerous creature. It definitely falls into that bracket, and they're quite common as well. Just maybe not the fastest, so if you have tons of movement speed, you should be fine. Right, in at number 7, we have got the Spino. And why do I think the Spino is the 7th most dangerous creature on the island? Well, the reason mainly for it is its speed. It is one of the fastest carnivores out there, and it is pretty lethal in the water as well, which most other carnivores really can't hold up, as things like the Rex, they really can't swim well at all. And you know, you try and go into the water, that Rex is never going to catch up with you, even a player on really slow movement speed, unless obviously the water's shallow enough and it can just walk itself along over the top of it. But with the Spino, you can't really get that, and they tend to spawn in more hostile areas as well. Although they don't really spawn around other more hostile creatures, they tend to spawn in places like the snow biome on the island, which is a lot more of a hostile environment than just the general South Zone one, which players will experience as they spawn in. And yet again, that water ability of them just being able to be really good swimmers is something which makes them a lot more deadly. And also they have the bleed ability, so they deal even more damage there. They really do pack a punch when it comes to damage. Although, if you've got enough, you've got good enough armor, you can probably just face them off in melee, as their health isn't the greatest. Although, still a very dangerous creature, and it will take a pretty powerful weapon to do that without killing yourself, and also doing that before your armor breaks. Now, next up we have the Theory, and the first thing I have to say, this thing's saddle is unlocked at level 69. And yes, what a nice thing for it to have. But that's not why it is dangerous. The 69 curse, although present in the Theory saddle, doesn't mean you have to obviously tame this thing at that level. And actually, they are pretty difficult for taming, because they're kind of dangerous, and also because they take a while, especially on official settings. Although, very well worth it, especially for defeating the dragon on the island. But why are these things so deadly? Well, they don't really appear to be so hostile, and if you go close to them, they will just chase you for ages and ages and ages, and you really can't get them off of your back. And, you know, that is a pretty irritating thing with a creature. Yeah, they can be dangerous, but if they de-aggro quickly, then you're not really going to have an issue. Whereas these things just never, ever seem to give up, and they just keep battling and battling and battling over and over again, just across the whole island map. I know there is a little bit of hyperbole there, but still, these things have an incredible long aggro distance, and that kind of really makes them extremely dangerous, and their damage is also ridiculously high. But it kind of makes sense. They do have massive claws. That would hurt. In at number 5, we have the Allosaurus, and this creature had to be here. It is so fast, and it deals the bleed ability, and they usually come in packs, and they spawn in hostile regions of the map. So they're pretty hard to deal with, especially because they come in packs. That can be a very tough thing to get around, because maybe you'll be able to take off one really easily like that, but trying to take on 3, that is a completely different story, and it's going to require significantly more effort for you to put in to actually be able to defeat all of those creatures. That's why they're a lot more dangerous, especially if you're a solo player, which actually I'm not sure what the statistics are like. I'm not sure if most ARC players are multiplayer or solo players, as in not as in they play on servers and they play on single player, but as in like they play with friends or they just play by themselves on multiplayer servers. Not actually sure, but I think it's more single player heavy, so you're more likely to be playing ARC solo, at least from my experience. For you, you might have never played ARC solo and you always play with friends, and I might be sounding like a complete idiot right now, but from my experience, ARC is usually a solo game for me, and on single player, especially earlier, even to the mid game, even sometimes in the late mid game, these things are just a no-go. You just don't go near these things. But then in the late game, they're not the worst thing ever. You can deal with a pack of them, but maybe 2 packs would be a little bit too far, unless you've just got the full tech charade, and then you'd be alright with no issues at all, and there's not really a point about talking about these creatures. But at that point, you can pretty much kill every ARC creature with absolute ease. That, you know, frankly, is any creature dangerous at that point? The only thing that would really be dangerous is things like turrets. They do a lot of damage. Next up, we've got the Microraptor, and I had to put this thing on the list here, as this thing, if you're flying in the air and it knocks you off your flying mount, or any mount if you're in any kind of combat, you can have yourself some serious issues, as you may not be able to defend yourself, and also you'll be stunned at the same time. You can kind of say the Polovia is in a similar spot to this creature, so kind of do the same thing, although these things can fly, which is why I put them here instead. It is a really lethal and frankly quite unfair ability for a creature to have, and that is why for a creature this small, it is insane that it is this deadly. Seriously, beware of Microraptors. In at number 3, we have the Giga, and the Tiny Tim is obviously an absolute beast of the ARC space, and you really can't get over this being like a really powerful and deadly, dangerous creature. Well, it is the most dangerous creatures on the island after all, and there really pretty much isn't anything more dangerous than this thing. Obviously, once tamed, it does have the rage meter, and a wild one is significantly more dangerous than a tamed one, but we are talking about wild ones, so it kind of makes sense. These things are absolutely insane in the wild, and still insane once tamed. Just they lose their bleed ability, then they get the rage meter, so they don't really have the health which they say. It's like a little bit of a lie, because you only get a certain percentage of it, but you know, still really, really OP. And when they were introduced into the game, they were like one of the like beast creatures on the map, and you know, you couldn't really discount them for that. But yeah, the Giga's in at number 3. Let's continue on with the list. In at number 2, we have the Kronosaurus, and this is just essentially the Giga on steroids, which is why I have put it on this spot in the list, of course. And you know, I do think it is very deserving of this spot in the list, as it is an extremely powerful creature, dealing a wealth of damage with just, frankly, that blood rage is something which is absolutely insane. Also, I don't really recommend taming the Kronosaurus on the island. Do it on Raasclark, as they're so much more common, as you're really not going to find these things that often on Ark. And compared to the creature on number 1, these are some of the most rare creatures out there, unless you're just playing normal Ark. If you're playing ASA, then they won't be like as rare as the creature in at number 1, maybe kind of equal to, really. But on ASA, the creature in at number 1 is just, it spawns absolutely everywhere. I kind of feel like there's a bit of an overspawn. But before we do get into the creature which is in at number 1, just a couple quick honorable mentions. I know I've kind of put the Thyla in at number 10, although it wasn't really on the list. I'll mention it again. And the Megalosaurus, and obviously the Titanosaur, because that creature I didn't put on the list, and I don't think it's too dangerous, because if you go up and you just attack a Titanosaur, isn't that a little bit stupid? And the creature in at number 1 will just attack you no matter what. So let's get into that creature. And in at number 1 is the Rhogatha. And did you really expect anything else? Especially on ASA, because these things spawn absolutely everywhere. It's actually kind of insane, and I'm a little bit disturbed in a way at how much they spawn. They only spawn on the island and Lost Island, actually, in these locations, or if you want just a broad term, the swamp biome on the island and the Lost Island. And on the older version of Ark, you'll need to use mods like Creature Finder Deluxe if you want to guarantee a quick find. And as you can see, I didn't even have any on my map, so I had to raise my dino count, and then obviously use the command destroy wild dinos, and then boom, you have done a dino wipe on your world. And you know, that just means it's just going to kill the wild dinos on your map. And I think you're supposed to put destroy all wild dinos instead of destroy wild dinos, but it might also be that one. Try both. Just there's one which is quite similar, which will also kill your own tame creatures, and you really don't want to do that. But the Rhogatha like basically shoots lasers and deals an insane amount of damage. This thing can also pick up Rexes. That's insane. But at least its tame method is insane, and I'll just quickly run through it. You steal a pheromone from a... Is it pheromone? You steal that from killing a male Rhogatha. Get those resources. If you want 100% effectiveness, again, it's not really a boss creature, so I wouldn't say it is very necessary. Then trap it in some way. The net gun is my preferred method, which is obviously why I use the net gun in this example here. Then, similarly to the Reaper, just get its health as low as possible. Sadly, there isn't really an indicator. I'm pretty sure like it won't glow a certain color once you've got it. It may glow orange, but in all of this and through all taming it, it didn't glow any color. So just rely on something like the magnifying glass, or if you have access to mods, use the awesome spyglass. Again, if you're on ASA, no matter what platform, you can use the awesome spyglass, as you can just look up the mod section, then feed that pheromone, definitely is a pheromone because it just said there, to your Bronto. Yep, you're going to need a Bronto as well. Don't necessarily need one, but you need a creature for it that will work. The Bronto is just the easiest, best one really, for effectiveness obviously. And then it will have its craving timers, it will die, so don't choose an important Bronto if that even exists, and then you'll get yourself a Rhogatha baby. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I really hope that you enjoyed this one, as I did very much enjoy making it. And as always, comment down below, what is the most dangerous Ark creature on the island, and did you agree with this list? And I'll see you all later.